Hello everyone and a warm welcome. My name is Simon from the studyabroadportal.com and I'll be hosting today's webinar brought to you by Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore with the webinar titled Food Processing in Italy, Discover the Industry Trends and the Reasons to Join Università Cattolica's Masters of Science degree that is in Food Processing. And on today's agenda, you will hear the reasons to choose Italy as a country, CREMONA as a city, and Cattolica as a university to specialize in food processing. You will hear how Cattolica's Faculty of Agriculture has developed the program in response to the current and future global trends in the sector. You will hear what a keynote speaker from a leading company in the industry advises students to pursue in terms of study and research. And lastly, you will hear the application process, the entry requirements, cost, scholarship available, and the process itself. And initial 30 minutes of presentation is what I'm expecting, will be followed by an interactive questions and answers session for which you, our esteemed on-demand viewers, can still submit questions, and that is by typing them in the box called the Q&A, and you should be able to find it below me. We will address a few pre-submitted, most frequently asked questions following the presentation. They will be addressed verbally, whereas for your specific questions, or perhaps if we don't address the topic today, please do rest assured. All of your queries will be forwarded on to the staff and or faculty members of Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore, who in turn will get back to you, providing you with the much needed information, most likely via email. So please feel free to submit as many questions as you would like. And also, before I introduce the presenters, before we connect to CREMONA, I would like to avert your attention to a window called the resource list. A lot of useful information has been provided to you via that channel as well, and I would urge you guys to take advantage of the platform and use it to your best advantage. But now, without further ado, I believe you've heard enough from me. It is time to connect to CREMONA, to Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore, and it's time to meet Aisha, Lorenzo, and Roberto. Greetings, how are you?
Hello, Simon. Thank you. Happy to be here today.
And
hello, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Simon, and a warm welcome from all of us here in Cattolica to this webinar. My name is Aisha Pathak. I am an international recruitment senior officer. So me and my colleagues travel around the world, often going to countries where you followers are following us today from. And in fact, when you do submit your questions and get in touch with us with any questions or application questions, it will probably be one of a regional manager that will answer you as well. I've done quite a few webinars in the past, but I have to admit that I am absolutely thrilled as never before to actually introduce and have two such distinguished guests with me today. On my left, we have Professor Lorenzo Morelli. He is the Masters of Science Food Processing Program Director. He is also director of two very important research centers, and news just off the press. He's recently been, very recently, been awarded the Top Scientist Award by the Public Life of Science Biology magazine. So congratulations on this award.
Thanks to you, but thanks to all my group that has supported me in this position.
I'm sure you have a very, very strong team behind you. And on my right, we have Mr. Roberto Minta. Now, Mr. Minta is the Nutrition Sustainability Director of CREMONA, which is the, if I understand correctly, research and analysis group of Ferrero. And I dare say Ferrero is a historic brand of the made in Italy food sector, and one of which millions of viewers will recognize in terms of products. So all the people out there liking chocolate will probably have heard of something called Nutella and Kinder. Yes. Well, I certainly have. Well, in this case, I think we're going to start off with you, Mr. Minta. So can you give us a brief introduction to Ferrero? And more importantly, what could be the future challenges facing the food industry and companies, leading companies such as Ferrero?
Thank you for the question. Ferrero, it's a confectionery company, ranked at the third place worldwide in chocolate and sugar confectionery. We are by far the leading company in Europe, and starting from, let me say, 10 years ago, we started the deployment and the rollout of our activity worldwide. So we have now substantial commercial activity in US and Americas. We have a plant in India and China, and that is definitely for the future the major target of our efforts. The plan of the company is definitely to grow. As I told you just before, the turnover is about 12 billion euro per year. This is not including the recent acquisition that we are something about more than 5 billion. That's still not consolidated into our business. The idea for the future is that meanwhile we will stay with our more traditional product in the classical field of confectionery. We will move and develop in the so-called sweet packaged food that is by far a larger segment, having a turnover that is 5 to 6 times more than sugar and chocolate confectionery. That's the reason why our acquisition were mainly in the direction of biscuit and other kind of food like this, mainly located in US and the Anglo world. Today we have roughly 40,000 of employees, always without including the people from acquisition. What I can tell you is related to acquisition, and that will be part, I guess, of our next talk. We are moving in a very sweet way. There is no distraction of what is existing. People is having a secure job, and we are not going to change the life of these people. What we want to change in the company is the philosophy and the culture of the product development and commercialization. That's it from my side.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to build on a little bit about what you've already slightly mentioned. We are here with an international audience, so it's a question of particular relevance. Ferrero's obviously got a huge presence globally. We're probably looking, I think you had told me during this preparation of the webinar, about 160 companies presence worldwide. So where are your biggest plans right now, and always with a future mindset? Is there any specific geographical regions you plan on moving to?
The biggest confectionery market is US worldwide, so the strategy of the company was, once we decided to increase the level of activity in this area, was at first to provide the facility for production of enough goods for this big market. So we have one plant production belonging to Ferrero in US. You have to add 3 more plants belonging to Ferrara, that is an acquisition, another 3 plants in US belonging to the former activity of Nestlé that we acquired recently in US. Meanwhile, we put 2 production plants, one in Hamilton, Canada, and one in Mexico, in order to have a short supply chain, one from the north and one from the side, and that was a way to organize this. The biggest plant are, let me say, I will mention the 4 biggest plants that are Hamilton, Canada, Allendorf, Germany, Belgium, Poland, and Italy. These plants are roughly having between 4,000 and 6,000 people inside. So that's easy to understand how we focus on this plant. Our idea is that the share of the turnover is today 60% Europe and 40% outside Europe. We would like to have a more balanced income and structure of revenues, and more, and that's, I think, is part also of the talk of today, the revenue coming from innovative and new product should, in, let me say, 5-year times, become relevant, because our ambitious program is in 5-year time to double our turnover.
You've used, thank you for that. You used the word innovative, and that really actually brings me to you, Professor. Well, I know you work alongside leading food companies, alongside your academic commitments. And when we were preparing for this webinar, one sentence you said to me stuck to my mind. And I'm just going to bring up the slide because I think it's relevant. You said, Italy is a country that produces relatively little, but transforms a lot. Bearing in mind this and everything that Mr. Menta just said, how do you feel this new Master's of Science in Food Processing meets the needs and the trends of the market?
Sure, I am pretty sure about this. Italy has a not so relevant production of raw materials. For instance, I think also most of the Italians do not know that we import flour to produce our pasta. Most of the pasta is produced not with the Italian flour. And we export a lot of coffee, we export a lot of chocolate, but we do not grow any cacao or coffee. That's the situation. So we have developed a special skill in processing, in transforming raw material into final food. And that's our, let's say, major effort.
I understand. So obviously the program goes and, you know, will address all this need for innovation and processing. But why do you feel Cremona is the ideal location for studying food processing?
Cremona is an old town. It goes back to the Roman times. And it is in the middle of what we call the food valley in Italy, the Po Valley. So Cremona produces a really relevant amount of milk and dairy products, the grana padano, cheese, and sausages. And Cremona has a long-standing tradition in food production, also in the confectionery, in the sweet. Probably most of our audience do not know torrone, but torrone is a special cake that goes back to the Middle Age and was born in Cremona. And the tradition is really clear because they use a little sugar and a lot of honey. And honey means it goes back to the Middle Age. So there is a tradition. And also we have to keep in mind that what is today a tradition, centuries ago was an innovation, was a well-done innovation. And so we have to stick to these two words, innovation and tradition.
Well, actually, I heard that you, Mr. Menta, are from Cremona yourself, originally. So, well, I mean, professors did very good.
Years ago.
But still Cremona. So, I mean, obviously, the professor has given us some really interesting details about, you know, the city and how that's relevant and the link between subject and territory. Is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of any tips that you might want to share with an international audience, or how the city has impacted your future career? Because in the end, you decided to dedicate your life to food.
Well, a few words related to Cremona and my, let me say, ancient origin in Cremona. Cremona is, first of all, deeply rooted inside the territory of origin. Agriculture is having an outstanding value, and is till today the major field of activity of Cremona, together with few selected industrial activity that develop later on. But basically, it's because of the geographic facility and the goodness of the field and the farm, we produce a lot of the part of the raw material that we use in this. Let me add really few words related to tradition and innovation. I always cite a motto from Oscar Wilde, asking himself and to the audience what is tradition. Tradition, he said, is a successful innovation. So there is a link between tradition and innovation, and the history is the link that show later on the value of the innovation matching with the needs of the people and the willing of the people.
Very inspiring. Back to you, Professor. So we've, I know actually that you've been following very closely the constructions of the new campus in Cremona. And I have to admit, my team and I are very excited because we know that other than the fabulous research and study facilities, It's a site very rich in artistic history. So go on, can you give us a preview of why it's such a special location?
Yeah, it's a very special location, and it's also the location has the innovation and tradition in itself. The building that you are seeing in the slide goes back 6 centuries ago, and we are renovating. All the buildings of the new campus location goes back to the 16th century, more or less. They were monastery. They are covered by fresco that we are restoring, and they are surrounded by wood and a very large campus location. And we can host 1,000 students there in a very large situation. And it's special because it was devoted centuries ago to the production of botanical drugs, just to, let's say, provide some pharmaceutical, let's say, products stemming from plants, flowers, and so on, to the population. And now we are innovating the tradition, going to, let's say, food processing, new food and new process.
It sounds definitely quite an experience for our students to be studying there when they're going to join us. So if we summarize, we focused on the industry, we focused on the country of Italy, we focused on Cremona as a hub, but now the real question, I think, for students is, why Università Cattolica? So, Professor, can you give us a brief introduction to the Faculty of Agriculture, Food and Environmental Sciences? I will give a preview. I do know that we are ranked in the QS Global Rankings by Subject 2019 top 200. So clearly there's an international recognition already from an academic point of view, but perhaps you can add to that and maybe mention some innovative products that you may be working on.
Sure. The problem, we have a lot of challenges today in food production because we have climate change. We have to be extremely aware of the environment and so sustainability. And for the master degree, we can really exploit more than 60 years of experience of this faculty. We were born in the 50s, last century, and we were always paying a lot of attention to the way of producing food, just to be extremely careful about the environment. I will give you an example.
Please do.
I think all of our audience know about the Italian ice cream.
Ooh,
Italian ice cream are famous, okay, all around the world. Gelato. And from the environment point of view, just have a look to the back. No problem. This is really environmental friendly because you can use as compost and we can open. But where is the problem? The problem is here.
Yes.
In this little spoon. Okay, I need this little spoon, otherwise I cannot eat. Okay? But it's plastic. So this is a problem. But why? We can replace plastic. This is one little spoon done by our students. So it is included in the activity, okay?
Okay.
It is made with vegetables, so I can eat
the gelato.
The gelato. And then
it's an edible spoon.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
So
more food as well.
That is sustainability as the student can really experience in our teaching courses in our campus.
That's definitely innovative. That isn't innovative, I'm not sure what is. Incredible. Okay, so thank you. Wow, that's really, really something exciting. So you guys have to try this edible spoon at some point. I'm definitely putting myself in the list. Well, I think now we need to also talk something a little more boring but important, because this is all very exciting, but students actually have to create an application and join us at some point. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about what you need to do in terms of application processes. You need to have at least a bachelor degree of at least 3 years, okay? We're not so concerned about GPAs as such. It's more about having relevant subjects and a relevant academic background. So, for example, bachelors in food, biotechnology, food engineering, biology, if I'm not mistaken. These are all very apt because, of course, they've given you a very suitable academic background to then take this to a Marshall Science level. For those of you who have not studied 100% in English or are not English mother tongue, you will need to provide an English language proficiency report. This can be an IELTS of 6 overall or a TOEFL certificate, for example, of about 83 overall. And then the application deadlines as well, we'll mention in just a second. The first thing is tuition fee. Money is, of course, an important aspect when choosing a postgraduate degree. So tuition fee is calculated based on where you are currently paying taxes and you and your family as opposed to your nationality. Hence why we talk about residency. So if you are a non-EU resident, the tuition fee is 8,500 euros per year, and this is a 2-year program. However, we do have a scholarship scheme. Cattolica, being a private university, has invested very much towards attracting international talent, and hence why we have actually tuition fee discount, a partial merit-based scholarship, which brings down tuition to 5,750 euros per year. Instead, if any of you are actually out there in Europe or are calculated as an EU resident, your tuition fee will range according to your income, and that can range from just under 4,000 up to a maximum of just under 9,000 euros per year. And you do have financial aid available once you arrive here as well. There is one thing that I would like to also bring back actually to the Tormenta. So of course, many of you are applying, you're thinking about higher education, you're thinking about a Master's of Science, but at the end of the day, it's all about getting a job, isn't it? So, Professor, in terms of rankings, I mentioned about an agriculture faculty ranking, but actually, Mr. Minta, you from a professional perspective, from a company perspective, I know Ferrero has a long-standing tradition of hosting Cattolica students for internships and also for example, for their thesis, for their research. From a company perspective, what characteristics do you feel a student starting their career in a company of your caliber should have?
Thank you. I think that you touched the two main points of the future need of the industry related to human resources. The first is the background, and the other one is the curricula that they belong and they offer to the company. Well, we are living in an exciting time. Everything is changing. So it cannot be expected that the old curricula works for the world of today. So curricula has to evolve together with the world. And the collaboration between industry and academy is of paramount importance in order to join effort to better identify the objective that we want to reach. Let me give you few examples in which I feel that we have to work together. In the next future, the way of collecting information and elaborating information will be based definitely on big data and big data analysis. Let me say today on the labor market, the level of data entry analyst is one of the most relevant one. Industry desperately reserve these people. And what happened is that because the curricula are not fully in compliance with the needs, we need a long, let me say between 6 months and 1 year, a long internal training for the people. That is definitely a cost for the industry. We have to find a way in which we can share our cost. I mean, mainly the time for industry, not the cost. We have to support academy in order to speed up and to grow in the very well organized and running process of development, because we need really definitely different curricula in this. Let me focus on the words of Professor Morelli a few minutes ago. Processing will be the main topics of the industry. We performed recently a life cycle analysis of all our products. Basically, we have in our sector the environmental impact located at the level of raw materials, let me say on average between 70 and 80%. So we have, let me say, limited space for maneuver inside the process itself. However, people are asking more and more, for example, for natural products. So we have to change the natural, the intensity, and the quality of our food processing in order to comply with the need of the people. That is a tremendous effort. We can do definitely this thing alone. We have to join with the part of society like academy that is having this expertise, and working together, I think, can speed up the process. So as you can see, we are really facing a new era, not only in the business that I described before, changing the strategy for rollout of the activity, changing the strategy for the new program, but we have to change the strategy inside the industry, not only Ferrero, but all industry, also in people hiring.
I think there's one reference you made, which I really like, which is you said, we companies have to work with academia. And that actually reminds me to tell you that, in fact, Cattolica is ranked #1 in the QS employability rankings, again, 2019 again. And it's really because we are #1 in terms of employer-student connection. And I think what you've just said is just a living example of what Cattolica's efforts have been, especially for the agricultural faculty, in terms of working with very relevant companies as well. So just to wrap up, you have the application deadlines. Applications open in December every year, and that's for entry in September the next year. There is a resource panel that you can see where you have more information about how to find out information, how to contact us, and everything related to the application process. At this point, I will personally thank our two guests, and especially I knew you, Mr. Minta, had been traveling a lot recently, so I'm very well aware of how tiring that can also be. So special thank you for having to make the time to come here. As well, thank you, Professor, also for bringing the props in. Simon, that's all from us.
Yes, allow me to thank your fellow presenters, Aisha, to Lorenzo and Roberto as well, for this very informative presentation. Believe that the gentleman's participation has ended. Let's see if we do have a question in our today's Q&A. And now we come to the information for our on-demand viewers. If you've missed the introduction, now would be the time to submit your questions. And as you see, we will be answering a few, most frequently, a few more predetermined questions now in order to help you to get you the information apart from the presentation that you just heard. And Aisha, most frequently asked question is in fact regarding financial matters. You've mentioned scholarships available. What would make one eligible? How can one be considered for a scholarship?
Actually, that's a very valuable question, one that I definitely know students ask a lot. And Cattolica actually doesn't have a special application form. When students submit their application, there is a dedicated section on the application form saying if you need to be considered for a scholarship. And then once the admission committee receives all the applications, there will be a ranking, of course, of sort of the strongest application in terms of merit, because they are merit-based scholarships, and then looking at about what your motivation letter was like, looking at what subjects you studied, what the grades obtained in those subjects that are relevant for the M.Sc in food processing. Based on that, if you get an offer, there's very, very high chances of getting that tuition fee discount as well. So there is no special application form. It's all, you are automatically considered for one, and then you are informed if you are eligible for it at the time of getting an offer. So that's really useful as well. So at least the student knows what to expect straight away upon receiving an offer.
Thank you very much, Aisha. And with the first question from the Q&A out of the way, allow me to bring the first of two polling questions that we have meant for our on-demand viewers, with the first question being, how useful did you find this webinar in understanding if this degree program is suitable to your academic profile and career ambitions? Would it be very much, a little bit, but you have some doubts, or not at all? Those are the options. Please do make sure to click on that submit button in order to finalize your answers, as your feedback would be greatly appreciated. And now moving back to the Q&A. Aisha, again, we are on the topic of application process. Is there an application fee to be paid?
All right, Simon. Well, there is an application fee for Cattolica's programs. However, for students that are registered to see this webinar, we can actually waive that application fee. So if you do send us an email and based on your registration, we can happily waive that for you as a little thank you for having gone to great lengths to find out more information about this program.
Thank you very much. That is quite generous from Università Cattolica side. Yes, the tuition fee, apologies, the application fee waiver. I don't want to say application fee waiver, yes. And allow me to bring our second and last polling question. If our audience members are planning to get in touch with Cattolica in order to find out even more information, you can do so by letting us know through the poll, or perhaps let us know through the Q&A panel. Use one of the channels to your best advantage, whichever that might be. Let's see, what else do we have? Very important question here, Aisha. Besides a relevant degree and an evidence of English language proficiency, do they need to have any work experience, perhaps the GMAT or GRE exams done?
All right. Well, actually, because this is a Master of Science degree and it is conceived as a continuation of a bachelor degree, we don't actually have any requirements in having work experience. Of course, if you have done something which is particularly relevant, I mean, by all means, I'm sure Professor would love to know what you've done, so he has a better idea of your profile, but there's absolutely no official requirement to have any work experience, and neither a GMAT or GRE. Now, obviously, if students have, are applying some other program or for some reason have this already, an upload doesn't cost anything, so send it over. But absolutely, from an application policy, there is no requirement, neither for GMAT, nor for GRE, nor for work experience.
Thank you yet again, Aisha. And with this, we are concluding our polling segment. Allow me to bring up the contact information slide for our audience to contact you in one form or another. And then, Aisha, given the fact that you guys have convinced them they've applied, or actually, no, they want to apply, you've mentioned the application deadline. What about the application start? When can they start applying?
The applications for entry in September actually open in December. So again, on the website, and if for all of those students that register, we do get in touch. So you'll be sure to be receiving some notification about applications open. But yes, website is the best reference. And just remember that you have from December until February, March, maximum April, to then start in September.
Thank you very much, Aisha. I have one more question, and you touched on the topic saying that they will be notified. The question here is, what happens after they've received an offer?
All right, so the structure is you receive an offer via email, so make sure you check your email, including your spam inbox. You then will hopefully accept the offer. And by doing that, you pay a first installment of 1,470 euros, and that will guarantee your place is blocked. And that is also why we recommend you applying earlier rather than later, because of course there's more places at the start. So apply early, confirm by paying the first installment, and afterwards you'll receive from the international office all the instructions for applying for a visa if you need one, and everything else related to you moving towards here. But the essential part to confirm your place will be paying the first installment, which is non-refundable.
Thank you yet again, Aisha. And I believe I am thanking you for the last time in today's Q&A for providing very useful answers to our audience members. And I believe it is now time to slowly start wrapping up today's on-demand webinar. And in order to do so, allow me to thank our audience members. Firstly, hopefully this session was informative. Well, I'm sure that it was more than just informative. And I sure hope that some of you are seriously, though, considering to apply to the program being presented today. That is the Masters of Science in Food Processing. And wishing you the best of luck with your application process. Also wishing you the best of luck with your future study, as well as professional endeavors later on in your lives. And a very special thank you to our lovely panel of 3 presenters for taking the time, for sharing the expertise. A special thank you to our guest presenter, Roberto Menta, of course to Professor Lorenzo Morelli, and you, Aisha Patak, for coordinating such a greatly presented webinar. And in order to really thank you, I would like to ask you for any last-minute closing comments before we say goodbye.
From my end, we're very excited to host you and to share our passion, which I think this faculty really transpires towards the dedication in research and students. So if we can share it with you, we'd be honored to. It's a pleasure. So submit your questions, submit your applications. The International Office is always there to answer anything. In terms of, did you want to say anything else?
Yeah, I think it could be worthwhile to have this experience in Italy and trying to exploit the tradition of the Italian food enlarged to the global world. So I will really wait for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that this is a unique occasion worldwide because, let me say, making a sort of similarity. If today the world is connected to circular economy, we go back to the starting point from which we move. Italy is the right place because of a long tradition. Italy and this area is the right place because of fantasy, because of innovative approach, because of long-lasting tradition. What we need, and this is the pleasure for me always to talk with students, is the future. The future are the students, and we clearly look for having enlarged collection of students worldwide. We are all brothers, and we have to learn to live together. So Italy would be a good step under the umbrella of the Cattolica for an international approach and a very, let me say, very correct approach to the sharing of experience and the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you from all of us in Cremona, and thank you, Simon, as well.
Thank you indeed this time to all of the participants in today's webinar, whether being our presenters, our on-demand viewers, or staff and personnel helping you with those supporting documents in the resource list. Thank you very much to all. And in order to wrap up this webinar, this is Simon, your host, signing off by wishing you could be a good morning, a good afternoon, or who knows, perhaps even a good evening from wherever you may be. Thank you again for watching, and goodbye.